Everyone, so today I'm going to be sharing insights when I remote viewed Ellen DeGeneres. So as always, please make sure to like and share this video, subscribe, as most of my videos end up just getting shadow banned, so it'll definitely help. And just getting into the video, I'm gonna get into it right now. I'm gonna try using some lighter language than most of my other remote viewing videos just to see if it will help sort of my video not get as shadow banned, but I'm still going to give all the information. So I just wanted to lay that out there. If I don't give as much depth in words, it's just a test to see if to just see what impact it will have on the reach of my remote viewing videos. So yeah, we're just going to get right into the video, and as always, take what resonates, leave what does not resonate, and that is that. Welcome to Exit Frequency. Okay, so I remote viewed Ellen, and I just think I'm gonna get right into it. We're gonna get point by point of this remote view. So I tapped into, so when I first set my intention to remote view Ellen, I immediately set my intention to be led to sort of how did she rise, right? Because we know how these situations go. We know how these how individuals rise, right? And Ellen was a very stereotypical way of rising to power. So she signed contracts in the early 1990s with the Illuminati in exchange for power, fame, and riches. So when Ellen signed those contracts, she damn well knew what she was getting into, okay? So then she was ordered to do a taped, filmed ritual, okay? If you've watched some of my other videos, you will know a lot of what those rituals are, okay? So I don't feel like I need to get into full depth. I do have some information about some of the parties that she's attended and some others who've been there and where she's been. Obviously, we are gonna get into that, so just wait. Okay, so after that initial ritual that she went through, that was when there was a reptilian entity that then latched on to her energetic field. So Ellen, she was not, brought up in a like a reptilian bloodline, a bloodline where you're gonna, get the fame, the power, and the fortune just from being in that bloodline. She, signed her contracts and, basically she had free will to give her power away to that being that then stepped in after that ritual, okay? So when that being kind of has been operating her body, this wasn't like a full body snatch, only because when we get into present day, which I'm going to get into, that being is losing influence. So that being really operated that energetic field whenever she would get more fame, get more riches, all that stuff. Like whenever that ego was just getting filled and she kept gaining more influence and power because that's what she wanted, right? That's why she signed these contracts to get involved in all of this, right? That being had more influence over her, but when she eventually lost that, which we're getting into, that I'm going to get there, but I just wanted to kind of say it was not like a full body snatch like other situations, okay, or other individuals like I've tapped into and shared information on. Okay, so when I kept like kind of going through Ellen's timeline, and I did kind of channel with her higher self a little bit at the end, which I am going to share what came forward. And yes, she is aware of everything that, okay, I'm not going to get too much into that, but very powerful message from her higher self. So Ellen, so there is a deep thread between Ellen and Diddy. okay? And I was able to see that, especially in her timeline. So the exact information that I pinpointed was Ellen and Diddy operate on the same Illuminati level with different roles to deceive the masses. But both are still not at the top of the pyramid. They have influence. They're able to get that reach, right? They're not at the top of the pyramid. And they both have, they both have a great deal of power and influence. And yes, they're still high up, but they're not at that highest level. So another Diddy connection that I saw with Ellen is Ellen has been to the Diddy parties, okay? So Ellen has been to the parties, and when I remote viewed to a particular situation of Ellen at a Diddy party, there was a let's just say a ritualized situation with some of the individuals who were at that party, and this was in the early 2000s. So some of these individuals, I'm going to name names. This video is for entertainment purposes only, and take what resonates, leave what does not resonate. Okay, so Ellen was at a party with Oprah, Beyonce, J-Lo, and this one's interesting, but Kamala Harris. Okay, she was at that party, and there was a big ritual with all of them. She is connected with all of them, and this led me to, interestingly enough, picking up on Kamala Harris and her involvement in this network. When we think of like, okay, Trump, yeah, very connected to that Epstein network. Kamala is in the Diddy network. Like, she is in it. And I did a whole remote view on her just a while back, and I already picked up on some of that information, but this just even confirmed that more. I will be exposing her down the road, especially because they are choosing her to run again on the Democratic ticket. Like, they have her lined up, and I have energetically confirmed that. So she is going to, they are using her. I mean, they're all kind of, she has left as like that pawn, but they are going to be using her again. So I will be exposing all this information about her in another video, and maybe I'll have to do that off YouTube, but I will give all the graphic information on what that individual, shall I say, has done in some rituals. Okay, so I will be exposing her maybe off YouTube, but stay tuned for that, especially before they start pushing her out again, which they will be starting to do that next year as they have chosen her. It's already pre-chosen, okay? Democracy is an illusion, guys. On the Democratic side and the Republican side, they already chose. It's gonna be, Vance most likely. So, and maybe they'll have one other individual to make it seem like there's some choice, but they're both on the same side. So it's all an illusion. I just want everyone to know that. Okay. So stay tuned for that. And both sides and all those individuals are compromised and in the shadow government. So I just want to make it clear, I literally do not take a side, because it's all an illusion and Israel controls the whole government. Okay, so I'm just very aware of that, and there's actually some connections to there in this video. So like, I'm not like, either way, you're going to be voting for like a representative for all those, reptilian causes. Okay, so okay, here we go. So we're going to get more into that. So yes, I wanted to say who she was at those Diddy parties with. Okay, so she was at these parties, and there were very graphic things going on. You could only imagine. This is when we're getting into Epstein Island. So she has gone to Epstein Island several times. And this was also in the early 2000s. So the early 2000s, she was going hard at these parties. She was in this network, okay? Knee deep in this network. So at the on you know, at those Epstein Island like ceremonies or whatever, she has been around very high profiled elite figures, okay, including previous presidential individuals. Um, she's done practices on that island with very global influential individuals, okay, and they call in people from Hollywood and well-known individuals, technically a lot of the time not even people, to go out there, and a lot of them do actually go out to Israel as well. That's a very hot spot for rituals as well. Just watch that the video I did about 6 months ago on that, 5 months ago. And but yeah, so they go out there, right? And it's just very important to note that it's not just in America, it's not just in DC, LA, like there's global, and there's some areas that are very hidden that individuals are flocked to for these ceremonies. But obviously, I did see her very connected to the Epstein Island, and I did get that confirmation. Okay, so she's been out there. And then I also saw, so when I tapped in more, like, who kind of was funding Ellen? Like, yeah, kind of Hollywood, right? So she had a lot of contracts that were very, like, pro-Israel, or, like, a lot of Zionist funding going right through to Ellen. So she was kind of there were a lot of those connections, and they were making a lot of money off of Ellen, but they were also helping her rise, which it is all connected at the end of the day. Like, that's, it's not surprising, but I wanted to just share there is that deep connection that she was getting funded through those channels. And a big connection to, obviously, a lot of these individuals needing to, like, publicly, either support Israel or take all that funding is because Israel, runs Hollywood, right? And funds all these individuals. And a big part of them needing to rise is they also need to publicly support that particular nation, as that is really the foundation for their fame. It's very connected, and yeah, so that shouldn't be surprising for anyone as well. Okay, and then, yeah, so another part of her studio, which I was able to pick up on, was her set, like, intentionally designed to look like Epstein Island. So I know there was talk about that, but this was something that was set in something that was done intentionally as a public ritual. So it's almost like truth in plain sight. Like, I've been here, I'm carrying those frequencies to present with all of you guys what I have done and where I've been. And it's almost like the truth in plain sight. So that's exactly why they made her studio look like Epstein Island. And then this is when we get into more of Ellen's role, okay? So she did use dark comedy to summon entities, reptilians, and demonic beings into the room where her shows were located, and other comedy events. So as a part of her having that role in the Illuminati, obviously she was much more connected. Obviously there was that being that was in control of her when she kept gaining that fame and fortune and all that. But it's also, you have to, like, do these summoning. So I don't know if you guys remember, there's obviously the hand signals, but I remember, like, a few years back, it was like it had to be the 2024 Super Bowl. And I literally remember, like, this singer by the name of Ice Spice, like, was throwing up the devil horns, like, in the stadium to summon in entities and reptilians and demonic beings. So that's, like, a good example of sort of what Ellen was doing through almost dark comedy. It's that same type of situation. So I think there is a lot of ties to that, and why they summon in all those beings. especially being high up, you're more connected and you're able to, that it's just a practice that those involved in these organizations do. And then another interesting thing about the Ellen studio was there was a lot of like frequency manipulation happening under the Ellen studio through underground ritualized acts designed to open the studio energetically so that, these lower vibrational forces and beings could enter the room during every show. So there was that presence there for every Ellen show. And also, it was very much around like this Hollywood vortex as well. So a big reason why, they chose LA for all of these acts is because there's a big grid line to, it sits on like an energetic grid line or like a vortex. So they're able to call in these negative entities much cleaner than if they and easier than if they lived in, if there was not that vortex there. It just opened up that channel more. So there was ties to that. And then, okay, this is when we're getting a little graphic, and I'm going to be just a little mindful of how I present this information. So she regularly, consumed the components, concoctions, and flesh during the peak of her fame, often right before going on stage and starting her show. Okay, so she very much was into cannibalism and drinking individuals' blood. I mean, that's what she did. I mean, that's what that being, after it stepped in and after she did that initial ritual, that's what Ellen did, and that's what Ellen became dependent on. And yes, she did do a lot of those sacrificial acts leading to that. Okay, so she was addicted to it. Obviously that component that gets you high, which y'all know what I'm talking about. Just trying to see what happens if I don't say it, and then see if my video still gets shadow banned like it always does. But anyway, so very much in consumption of the A, and very much into that cannibalism acts. Okay, so I did see that before going on stage, before going on somebody else's talk show, when I say high on that, I mean she was high off of that. Okay, she really was knee deep in all of that stuff. Okay, so I wanted to get into that because there was huge ties, and I pinpointed several, obviously including at those parties and all that. But okay, so now I'm gonna get into Anne Heche and Twitch. So what happened with Anne Heche, who was Ellen's first girlfriend, or they were together before she met her current wife, which I'm gonna get into how that was sort of an arranged Illuminati style marriage, but we're gonna get into that more. Sorry guys, my forehead's itchy. Ugh. So we're gonna get into sort of that arranged marriage a little bit. And okay, so Anne Heche, she knew about Ellen's past. Okay, so she had deep knowledge about a lot of the darker stuff, and she was waiting to whistleblow. Okay, so Anne Heche was going to whistleblow, and I saw that energetically, that very clear link of she was, especially around the time that, and I saw what ended up happening to her while remote viewing a little bit, but she was going to whistleblow, and she was very much in the light. Her soul was such a high vibrational essence. She she wanted to get this information out there, and Ellen did order that hit on her in 2022, which I saw. So there was that, like, shall I say, like, staged car crash, right? But then they did eventually just take her out. There was that involvement, obviously, but they did take her out after that car crash. Particularly, I saw, like, on the way to the hospital, in there was obviously that embedded influence that took her out, okay? But Anne knew, and Anne was going to whistleblow. And she has seen Ellen. She has seen Ellen shapeshift. I'm just going to leave it at that. She has seen Ellen shapeshift, and Ellen used to be able to actually shapeshift when that being stepped in, very clear, either during ritual or when on the A, right? So that's when that being then stepped in. And Anne was very, like, she was very much awakened to a lot that was going on, and knew that she had to be very careful who to bring forward this information to. And unfortunately, there was that moment when, let's just say, what's that word? Malevolent? I literally don't know that word. I know the word I'm thinking about, malevolent. I don't know what that word... Wait, my brain just froze. Darker forces found out that she was, shall I say, going to whistleblow. Okay, so she was going to whistleblow. I think it's Okay, I'm not trying anymore, guys. I'm done. I'm done with that word. I don't care about malevolent. Okay, so, but y'all know what I mean. So she got kind of caught, or not caught, but there was notice of how she was going to speak out, and it did seem like maybe one of her, like, devices was tapped, and she was either talking through to somebody, or it was a very unfortunate situation how they did find out that Anne was going to speak out, and that was when sort of these allegations were starting to come out about Ellen, which I'm going to fully get into, okay? Now I'm going to get into Twitch, okay? So Twitch, a little bit deeper, but Twitch there has been a few different occasions towards the end of his time before the show got shut down, where he has found Ellen consuming flesh in the studio. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it at that. It is very graphic. Twitch was once again going to whistleblow. Okay, Twitch saw it all at that point, and once again, like, there was very similar time frames when once again there was notice, or became aware that Twitch knew and he was going to speak out, and it got back to Ellen, and Ellen once again called the hit on Twitch, and that was after this Anne Heche situation. She ordered the hit on both of them, and I tapped into, because it said he did die by taking himself out, but I did see it was, and with the Anne Heche situation, it was more of a lethal concoction. So it was like that with him. And then they framed Twitch as, oh, look what he just did to himself. But that was a planted situation. And I was a little bit surprised too, because especially, nowadays when a lot of people do take themselves out, especially, with a weapon, it's very much tied to this frequency manipulation. Look at David Wilcock, and it's been going on for several years at this point, but that wasn't how he went. They actually, so it was like a concoction and then framed it like that. Okay. So after, obviously, we just got into all of that. Where we're going from here is I'm going to touch upon when Ellen started getting exposed, okay? We're getting into the 2020 allegations. So a good example of when somebody is not showing up to as many rituals, they're kind of pushing back against other members of the Illuminati. Let's look at Diddy, right? He's a small piece of the big picture. When it comes to the top of the pyramid, he has little power, okay? He was not, showing up to where he had to be. He was not doing what he had to do. So that's when they released the allegations and obviously gave him that fluffy sentence as like you're getting back in line. You are in our secret society, right? So similar situation with Ellen. She wasn't showing up to as many events as she was supposed to. She was just it was a very dark possession, obviously working through her when she was in this fame era. So she obviously was not a nice individual with a reptilian. It was actually a female reptilian that was kind of working through her. And when she did shapeshift, it was like she was actually able. So a lot of the time it's like sometimes you can't because of your bloodline, but it had such an influence, especially when she would be very much in those altered states when she would do all those consumptions. She would be able to literally shapeshift, and it was like form like with a tail. Okay, so just wanted to throw that out there, but we're gonna get into like why she can't really anymore, which she cannot at this time. Okay, so they started releasing these allegations of her because she was not listening to their orders. She was not getting in line. And that is when obviously these memos started coming out. These individuals, obviously, people started coming forward about how obviously like rude of an individual. I don't really want to call it a person because it was very much possessed during that whole era. But that is that whole, when all those allegations came out, it was more like you're not in line and we're going to ruin your career and we're going to embarrass you. So that's exactly what happened with Ellen, and obviously her career practically ended after all those allegations came out, and she became, I specifically put down, she became angering other members and going against them silently, and then public allegations started surfacing to go back at her. And there were more like warnings to step in line. And then now we're going to get into why she fled to the UK. So obviously it was because obviously she is in the files, and not only that, they were like, you will be fully exposed and we will be exposing you on a deeper level, or you can get out of the country and lose all your fame, and we are cutting off your supply. And they cut off her supply entirely. She went through an immediate withdrawal. And then as she was withdrawing from the A, and there's severe withdrawals, that's when and if you see the pictures of her 2024 to 2026, just that 2-year withdrawal window, look at how she looks, right? She has had no A in 2 years. Her whole supply is cut off. She's basically, yes, still kind of in it, but in the shadow, in the Illuminati, but not her level got kicked down so low, and that being lost influence over her, especially as she was coming off the A. So she is currently unable to shapeshift. That being, it's almost like, think about it like you sign your contract or your soul or your body away to be used for fame and fortune, but if you lose your fame and fortune, you kind of get some part of you back. And that's what happened with Ellen. So yes, I wrote the reptilian entity attached to her is losing power, and without it stepping in, she herself is breaking down inside. So she is becoming much more aware on a deeper level, everything that she was into, okay? So then when I went to her higher self and I was kind of asking her, like, energetically, sort of, how do you feel, right? And what was relayed to me was there is actual regret. And she knows she messed up by getting into the Illuminati. She does regret it. Yes, very dark, disgusting acts, obviously, along the way, which all of them do, but she is very regretful, and she is sitting with a lot of grief and guilt at this time. And so that was just relayed to me on like a very deep level, is like she is aware of everything she got herself into, and she is more regretful than she was when she was in the fame, fortune, and riches, right? And I think that it was pretty eye-opening for me, just to kind of feel into that energy a little bit. And a lot of the times it's like you just want to be angry and upset at these disgusting individuals, but sometimes, like, think about like the greed that you want to do to get into the fame and fortune, and it's like it's not worth it in the end. It's just a reptilian thing, right? And I think that with Ellen's situation, she, like, it's not excusing the evil, disgusting shit that she's done, right? But it's just kind of saying, like, okay, there could be some sort of regret, and just, I guess, feeling into that was a little eye-opening for me. So yeah, so I put down, like, being away from her old life in the UK has helped her confront all that she's been involved in. So she knows her fame days are over. Ellen is done with fame. She's done. And then I tapped into, like, okay, how did she meet her current wife? That's kind of, I should have put this part a little bit earlier, but she met her wife at like a party, like one of the parties, and she was very low in the Illuminati, but it was almost like an arranged marriage to get her to the next level. So she wanted more fame, power, and fortune. So that's why she wanted to be with Ellen, to get her to that next level. So that was interesting information as well. How she met her current partner, I guess. And then I sort of tapped into Ellen's soul trajectory, and given obviously everything that she has went through in this current incarnation, I did see, as a soul, Ellen will immediately reincarnate back onto this planet for another lifetime to work through all the karma and trauma she inflicted onto others. She is a clear example of someone deeply stuck in the reincarnation loop with heavy soul lessons. So Ellen will be coming back to clear all this karma and trauma that she has inflicted onto a lot of innocents. And she, and I think that she's aware of it. And I think that she will be, the last thing I put was, as we move towards 2029 and 2030, her full past and involvement will be revealed. What we're seeing now is only the beginning. It's the calm before the storm, and she will be fully exposed as we get into 2030, with like even the darker stuff coming out a little bit. So, I think it was just important to get into Ellen, a little surprise video. I don't normally do a lot of Hollywood stuff, but I wanted to obviously share with you guys all my findings when I remote viewed Ellen, and then tapping into all these other connections. It's very deep, and I hope I just, gave you guys a little more clarity and on maybe something you already felt about Ellen, or kind of just presenting new information, because now is the time for all of us to gain this knowledge, because knowledge is power, and that's how we're going to reclaim our sovereignty as a society. So sending you all so much love and light, and I'll see you in the next one.